Hello and welcome to the channel where in this video we'll talk about the most recent cynosure of the world's eyes, the Taliban. It literally means students. They are students. Or at least they were primarily students when they started off. But who are they? It is commonly understood that they are from the majority Pashtun people of Afghanistan. The Taliban emerged in 1994 as one of the prominent factions in the Afghan civil war and largely consisted of students, Talib, from the Pashtun areas of eastern and southern Afghanistan who had been educated in traditional Islamic schools, and fought during the Soviet-Afghan War. From 1996 to 2001, the Taliban held power over roughly three-quarters of Afghanistan, and enforced a strict interpretation of Sharia, or Islamic law. Under the leadership of Muhammad Omar, the movement spread throughout most of Afghanistan, sequestering power from the Mujahideen warlords. It is interesting to note that the Taliban are not a US-designated foreign terrorist organization, FTO. However, they do have to contend with quite a few of those in Afghanistan like the Al-Qaeda, the Islamic State and the Haqqani network. Over the years, they have had a fairly stable top leadership. It is currently headed by Hibatullah Akhundzada. Many countries in its neighborhood feel that their ideologies align to some extent with the Taliban and that it may be easier to deal with them than a belligerent but transient US, or a corrupt and not entirely representative and not entirely in control government which is in power only on the back of outside support. So we have countries like Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, Iran, China, Russia, Turkey all not denouncing the capture of Kabul by the Taliban. I mean, of course, governments of these countries are hardly the paragons of democracy and do not carry the best brand image with the Western media, and a lot of which is well deserved. All that is to say that some countries do not oppose the Taliban's presence in the Afghan government. However, some countries do. Here's a joint statement by the US along with most of the Western European countries, Australia, New Zealand, the UK and a bunch of other nations. Given the deteriorating security situation, we support, are working to secure, and call on all parties to respect and facilitate, the safe and orderly departure of foreign nationals and Afghans who wish to leave the country. Those in positions of power and authority across Afghanistan bear responsibility and accountability for the protection of human life and property, and for the immediate restoration of security and civil order. Afghans and international citizens who wish to depart must be allowed to do so. Roads, airports and border crossing must remain open, and calm must be maintained. The Afghan people deserve to live in safety, security and dignity. We in the international community stand ready to assist them. This was put out on August 16, 2021. By this day, Taliban has already seized Kabul and is in power in Afghanistan. So, those in positions of power and authority across Afghanistan must primarily refer to the Taliban, and yet they are not referred to directly by name. One of the reasons why people are apprehensive is because the Taliban have a very poor track record of treating people like people. Here's Wikipedia. While the Taliban controlled Afghanistan, they banned activities and media including paintings, photography, and movies if they showed people or other living things, and prohibited music using instruments, with the exception of the dav, a type of frame drum. The Taliban prevented women from attending school, banned women from working jobs outside of healthcare, male doctors were prohibited from seeing women, and required that women were accompanied by a male relative and wear a burqa at all times when in public. If women broke certain rules, they were publicly whipped or executed. Religious and ethnic minorities were heavily discriminated against during Taliban rule. According to the United Nations, the Taliban and their allies were responsible for 76% of Afghan civilian casualties in 2010, and 80% in 2011 and 2012. The Taliban also engaged in cultural genocide, destroying numerous monuments including the famous 1500-year-old Buddhas of Bamiyan. One of the things that work in the favor of the Taliban is that they also seem to have figured out how to control their hierarchy and organization, unlike the Afghan government that was in charge. The swiftness with which the Taliban were able to take the country once the US announced its withdrawal speaks volumes, mostly about the incompetence of the Afghan government that was in charge, but also about some, even if rudimentary, level of organization among the Taliban forces. They are also reasonably well funded and have over the years figured how to get access to funds without relying on donations from countries or rich individuals. It is estimated that they may have an annual revenue of close to $1.6 billion, compared to an Afghan economy of $20 billion, most of which might be related to the US and foreign presence in the country and may dissipate once they leave. The Taliban seem to be doing well. It is speculated that they get most of their earnings from exporting commodities and drugs. Exporting commodities might mean digging up the earth, loading it on trucks and sending it to whoever would like to pay some money for it. And it is fairly well known that Afghanistan has many poppy fields and makes a significant portion of the world's heroin, and it is not just the Taliban who may be doing it. They also tax local economies which they control and own some real estate. Critically, they seem to keep their costs low, not spend on extravagant lifestyles, and probably manage corruption better than the erstwhile Afghan government. The erstwhile Afghan government was widely believed to be corrupt, with Russia recently alleging that Ghani fled with 4 cars and a helicopter full of cash while leaving some cash behind because there wasn't enough space to carry all of it. Also, we come to know that the erstwhile Afghan government's troops were not paid or fed or armed properly. While that may not have been the case with the Taliban fighters, it is then no surprise that Afghanistan fell so swiftly to the Taliban. No one wanted to put their lives on the line while their supposed leader was stuffing cash in cars and helicopters. That is not a good look. It is also a massive egg on the face for the US and other Western nations who propped up the regime. All of this does not exonerate the Taliban. However, we can question if the difference between the erstwhile Afghan government and the Taliban is just a false dichotomy. So that was a brief look at the Talibans of Afghanistan. Hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, a like would be much appreciated. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.